A group of friends gathered, excited to watch an anime called Handa-kun. They call themselves Handa Force and declare themselves Handa's biggest fans. They start debating the genre and style. One believes Handa will be the new symbol of masculinity, another thinks he'll be a romantic charmer, and a third suggests he might be an underestimated school genius. They drift into daydreams, imagining possibilities from a medieval fantasy world challenging dragons to a futuristic technological world battling aliens. Then they decide to seek more information and discover that the first episode has already aired, and no one from Handa Force recorded it. One of them calls anime fanatic friends, hoping someone recorded it. No one did, and he gets furious. He resolves to call the broadcasting station for a rerun, but they ignore him. The group then pauses and decides to make their own version. With no budget, they write, draw, and dub an anime. When it's finished, they sit down to watch and realize their work is awful. It's terrible. At that moment, they receive something in the mail. They open it and find the broadcasting station has gifted Handa Force the DVD of the first episode. They watch it and discover Handa is a teenage genius known for his calligraphy. He's very withdrawn, somewhat paranoid, and believes everyone hates him. Since childhood, he's received so many hidden letters that he swore never to read them. Furthermore, people steal his personal belongings, which he believes is bullying. In his mind, everyone is mocking him. In his first week of high school, he believed the letters would stop. But to his dismay, there's one. He avoids opening it, thinking it's a chain letter or a prank. So he takes it, crumples it, and throws it away. A girl sees this, gets irritated, and confronts him, calling him arrogant. Her friend spent the night making that for him after all. Not understanding the girl's intentions or what's happening, he asks them what was written in the letter. Mako, a shy girl, musters courage and invites him to meet her behind the gym after school. In his head, he believes this is just a challenge and considers what might happen. He thinks the girls will humiliate him for being sad and clumsy. Worse, he imagines their boyfriends think he's interested in them, and he'll get beaten up. Even with these absurd ideas, he promises himself not to back down and will face whatever it is. He gets distracted and stops paying attention in class, starting his plan. This draws the attention of the teacher, who thinks he's being negligent by ignoring authority and sends him to the principal's office. The students find it incredible how authentic and tough Handa is. They start laughing, and he thinks they're laughing at him. He then goes to the blackboard, providing a correction for the math lesson using his calligraphy ink. The teacher gives up trying to make him pay attention and lets him continue only with calligraphy. But for Handa's plan to work, he tries to remember Mako's name and tries to get a hint from Juri. He stares at her for a long time without saying a word and hands her a letter to read alone. The problem is Juri has a secret. She's also in love with Handa but supports Mako, who confessed first. Now she believes Handa reciprocates her feelings. She reads the letter and the ink is a bit smudged, preventing a clear reading. Some loose things are easy to understand. And she believes Handa is in love with her, making her decide between love and her friendship with Mako. During the next class, Handa notices Juri acting strangely. He gets lost in his thoughts, and by chance the teacher tries to interact with him. He ends up thinking aloud, which sounds like a rude response to the teacher. At lunchtime, Mako and Juri eat together. Their conversation doesn't help her decide whether to start dating Handa or help her friend. Meanwhile, time passes and Handa still has no idea what will happen at the meeting. After packing around, he decides to face the girls behind the gym. Whatever happens, he'll face it. People gather and invite a boy named Kawai, who decides not to attend. Upon arriving, many curious onlookers are waiting to see what he'll do. And Handa Force gets excited for the next week. They wonder what to do with the anime they made themselves. One of them thinks of showing it to Handa himself. Another thinks it's a bad idea. Then we see Handa standing there staring at Mako and Juri. And around them, people are commenting that they think he's an incredible guy. He still doesn't understand what's happening and imagines he might have to fight both of them. Mako slowly approaches him, intending to hand him a letter. But Juri hits her, pretending it was an accident. The action repeats a few times and the two start arguing and fighting. Juri puts Mako in a headlock while the onlookers film. Handa still doesn't understand and watches paralyzed. And Juri ends up declaring that they can't be together, even if he falls in love with an ugly person who lives in Mako's shadow. Not understanding anything, Handa turns and walks away. And everyone thinks he's snubbing the girls. Before leaving, he gives a disgusting speech that they should be friends and take care of each other instead of fighting. Mako manages to break free and hands him a letter, saying it's the best she can do. Not realizing it's a love letter, he criticizes the calligraphy, saying it's poorly done. The girls are humiliated and cry in the courtyard, believing Handa only cares about calligraphy. They end up rekindling their friendship, deciding to study together and becoming best friends and rivals in love again. After this, we are finally introduced to one of Handa Force's members. In the past, Aizawa, the current club president, never missed a single class in 10 years and believed that with his grades and age, he should hold the position of class president. He therefore expected to be voted in by the other students. But then Handa became his competitor. Handa ended up sleeping during the vote, not thinking people would vote for him. And it caused a tie, even because the teacher voted for the absent student. To break the tie, an anonymous election was held, and the entire class goes to the polls, which creates tension between the two. Aizawa is eager to win, and Handa wants to escape responsibility but doesn't comment on it. Upon checking the votes, it's a tie again, and the teacher suggests they engage in a rock-paper-scissors battle. This annoyed Aizawa for trivializing something he considered serious. But since the whole class agreed, he also accepts. After a speech from Aizawa, Handa understands that he wants to be president and uses this as an opportunity to hand over the position. The protagonist announces he'll play rock, which creates a huge dilemma for Aizawa, who thinks it's a trap. He then plays scissors and loses the game, the silly fellow. Aizawa begs for a best of 3, and Handa agrees and insists he wants to lose. The entire class treats the situation like a championship finale. Outside, Kao hears the commotion. This time Aizawa does a whole probability analysis in his head and believes he'll win. But again, the protagonist plays rock and he plays scissors, losing the game. Aizawa begs for a best of 5, but Handa thinks this is just a trick, and that he's playing with him to be president in a humiliating way. The teacher declares Handa president, and he immediately resigns, saying he's unavailable. Aizawa thinks it was out of pity and confronts him, but Handa says no and that he even voted for him. This annoys the class. Aizawa believes Handa is superior, that he did all this to teach him a lesson that this position isn't just about a title but about caring for others, something much greater. Aizawa then realizes who was the most suitable person to be class president. When Handa arrives in class the next day, he discovers that the students believe Handa is the best option for president, while Aizawa will do the hard work as vice president. At this moment, Handa, oblivious to the importance of the moment, asks Aizawa what a class president does. A long time passes and we are introduced to another future member of Handa Force, the beautiful and seductive Ryo. He is very famous and has many girls in love with him. And he loves being flattered until he notices Handa's competition. Ryo asks the girls who they find more attractive, him or Handa. The girls find him more handsome, but Handa has a mysterious energy that makes him very attractive. The guy is dismayed by this answer and decides to follow Handa and discover his secrets. Meanwhile, Kawa just observes from afar and doesn't get involved. Then, turning a corner, Ryo suddenly loses sight of Handa. And then he ends up finding some girls who are also looking for Handa. Ryo pretends not to be interested in the boy, and out of the corner of his eye he sees him. But as he says goodbye to the girls, he loses sight of the protagonist again. Then he starts searching the whole area. He ends up getting dirty with sand from the park and runs through several alleys. By chance, he finds our protagonist observing a stationary cat. This lasted about 30 minutes. Ryo doesn't understand what's happening and quietly observes. And as soon as Handa decides to leave, Ryo tries to investigate the cat to understand the purpose. Looking into the cat's eyes, he believes Handa is inspired by the animal's mysterious gaze to seduce girls, and he doesn't know that, in fact, Handa is allergic to cats. Handa continues his journey and remembers he needs to do some shopping. Unaware of anything, he walks through an area of the city with many model agencies. For Ryo, this is like a threat, because Handa would definitely win in a beauty contest. Ryo was very right, as one of the agents who used to work with him sees Handa on the street, and even though he's quite dirty, he approaches the agent, trying to prevent him from contacting Handa. But it still happened and the agent approaches Handa. And Ryo makes such a big scene that it scares both him and the protagonist. The agent offers Handa a jacket to wear, but he believes the beggar deserves it more to keep warm. Unbeknownst to him, he was referring to Ryo. He ended up calling the guy a beggar man. The young model understands that all this futility was nothing compared to Handa's kindness and wisdom. He then believes that's why girls prefer him. Ryo then stops being a model. Well, after this foolishness, he was fired. He had transformed because he considered himself a real man. But he didn't know that in reality, Handa is a normal guy. He just gets irritated easily, for example, with people who cut in line. One of the class president's duties is to look after absent students, and there's one in the class. His name is Tsutsui Tsurugi Akin, and Handa was tasked with visiting him. When he arrives at the address, no one is home. He decides to leave the activities in the mailbox, but he ends up being stopped by a juvenile delinquent with a baseball bat on his shoulder. He glances at the kid, looks at the photo and sees that Akin has nothing to do with this guy, right? This guy is muscular and big, while the Akin in the photo is tiny and cute. He then asks about Akin and he says he is Akin, and Handa is stunned, not believing it was him. Akin imagines Handa was sent by the teachers to convince him to return to class, and as proof that he wouldn't return to school, he attacks a column with the bat. But Handa doesn't even blink, he doesn't react. And then for Akin, Handa is very tough and he respects that. But in reality, Handa couldn't even react, it was so fast. With this respect he gained from Akin, he decides to tell why he's not going to school anymore. He says he was very thin and was bullied for being weak. To make matters worse, he had an angelic face and was verbally abused by boys, and girls believed he was flirting with their boyfriend. And then my son, when the first semester arrived, he dropped out of school and started training in his room. In 6 months of intense training, he became a monster. And then he got into fights with neighborhood thugs, even being arrested a few times. Handa doesn't care much about the story and focuses on his mission, which is to deliver the assessments. This determination makes Akin tremble and almost attack Handa. This only didn't happen because a gang appeared to confront him. Akin is in the middle of the guys, and Handa finally delivers the activities to him. With this, Akin believes he will fight by his side. The fight begins and Akin is very grateful to have someone helping him. He always felt alone against the world, and then out of nowhere a stranger decided to help him. For the first time in a long time, he felt grateful to have someone for him. The thing is, Handa completed his mission and was withdrawn. Until one of the thugs tries to put him back in the fight. But without showing fear, but rather disgust with his impenetrable and antisocial gaze, he scares the boy. Some of the other thugs recognize him and spread rumors about Handa. About, for example, when he plans someone's death to look like an accident, and that he has 666 followers and a bunch of other nonsense people invent about him. Absurdities like him having killed a bear and stolen a motorcycle at just 5 years old. The guys are all scared because Akin is Handa's friend. They tremble so much with fear of dying that they flee. The crazy guys run away. And then Akin is left alone and tries to digest everything that happened. He thinks about how much Handa is a man of value, and ends up reading the message inside the envelope asking him to return to school, and Akin is moved by this and cries a lot. The next day, everyone is surprised and open-mouthed that Akin decided to return to school due to Handa's request, and he even wants him to be his friend. In cooking class, the teacher suggests that students divide into groups. A boy named Kondo randomly falls into the group of Aizawa, Ryo, Akin, and Handa. In front of these names, Kondo feels diminished. One of these guys is the class vice president. There's the ex-model, another who overcame bullying and practically the god of the school. The four begin to organize the recipe with the intention of pleasing Handa with a delicious dish. But he doesn't want to participate, he lets the others do what they want. The three believe Handa is being incredible. Only Kondo seems to really understand that something is wrong. Then the three prepare the dish, divide the tasks, and cook with great skill, while Kondo watches them working and observes Handa, fearing his evaluation. Handa is left alone and decides to make a pudding based on what comes into his head, and mixes a lot of things that don't make sense. Then Kondo watches and sees that nothing good can come out of this improvised recipe. Then the trio starts to disagree when the recipe doesn't work well. Then a small fire starts, they try to put it out. And in a completely wrong move, Handa throws water on hot oil, creating a blaze of fire. Chaos takes over and the teacher evacuates the student. Kondo, who is the only one with common sense, uses a fire extinguisher to put out the fire. Then Handa leaves the room and the three boys believe he caused this confusion so they would stop fighting. But Kondo cannot agree. Food was messed up, but they remember Handa left a pudding in the fridge and decide to try it. Even with a horrible taste, they find it wonderful because it was made by Handa. And they try to convince Kondo to eat it too. Against his will, he eats it forced and thanks Handa. And with that, he becomes the last member of Handa Force. Handa continues to believe that everyone in the school hates him, except for one person he considers a friend, Kawai. But for fear of them hating his friend as they hate him, he prefers to avoid Kawai and isolate himself. In the classroom, he interacts with a girl named Niu, who loses her eraser. Handa thinks it would be problematic to give a dirty eraser to the girl, and then he gives his new eraser for her to use. In her head, this is a very kind act. For him, Niu is cruel and trapped him in a social snare with this eraser exchange. At the end of class, students gather to clean the room. The girls are attentive and offer to take responsibility for Handa's activities, so he can study his calligraphy in peace, but then he understands it as if he's being excluded because he's getting in the way. Oh, what a silly boy. When he goes outside the school, he meets Kawai. And then the two go to buy paper and ink as they are the only ones who participate in the calligraphy club. Some girls enter the store and Kawai interacts with them while Handa flees and hides. After they shop and leave, Kawai doesn't understand why he hid, and Handa replies that it could be a problem for them to see them together. Then the two leave the store and meet some people on the street again. And the man hides. The same happens when they go to the restaurant. After some embarrassing escapes, Kawai says there's no problem with them being seen together. But Handa continues to insist on protecting his friend from gossip. Then Kawai remembers the past and blames himself for Handa having this closed personality. They met because of calligraphy and soon became friends. Kawai was always popular and full of interested girls. But one day, a girl approached him so he could deliver a letter to Handa. That's why he was quite upset about being used as a messenger. But he was excited for his friend and made a joke as if Handa was being narcissistic by writing verses for the girls. But then Handa didn't understand the joke at all, and he was shocked, thinking he was being defamed, and then he decided to cut ties with anyone in order to avoid misunderstanding. And this is the reason he believes everyone hates him. Although Kawai feels very bad about the situation, he enjoys Handa's innocence and not knowing that he is popular at school. Soon after, we see some boys who used to bully Akin. They discover he's returned to school. In their memories, he's still that fragile boy and they decide to pay him a visit. But they encounter his new, muscular version. I don't think that bodes well for them now, do you? The girls at school bought a poem in the square saying Handa wrote it. But in fact, he didn't write anything and he gets irritated by it. The Handa Force boys decide to investigate. They've followed him so many times that they know he didn't write it. So the four go to the park to find out who's doing it. And they end up encountering the imposter, a buck-toothed and strange kid who pretends to be Handa. Akin doesn't want much talk and punches him. But Kondo scolds him and Ryo approaches to lift him up, only to put him in a better position to take some more hits. They interrogate the boy and he tells them that one day he wore a disposable mask to go to school. He ended up being mistaken for Handa and realized that in fact he looked very similar. His way of walking, of moving. Aside from his prominent teeth, he's very similar. So similar that several girls confused him and started harassing him, all wanting contact with him. All this mess bothered him and he took off the mask, revealing his true Handa. The girls are disappointed and leave, leaving the fake Handa disappointed. The Handa Force boys made the imposter stop the imitation, something he promises, but very sadly after what happened. Then they return to school and the original Handa writes a message about the poem on the blackboard. He wrote, if you're going to copy someone, be better, not the same. Everyone except Kondo and the fake Handa understands that as a message of self-esteem and originality. A few days pass and the fake Handa gets braces to correct his teeth, and from now on he dedicates himself to being better than Handa. Some Handa fans see him with a girl on the street and believe she's his girlfriend. Then a rumor starts that he's taken, which breaks the hearts of the girls who like him. The next day Handa arrives in the classroom and looks at his desk and sees "die" written on it. The girls are truly outraged. He analyzes the brushstrokes and is interested in investigating. Later, the Handa Force boys, without even talking to him, do the same. According to Aizawa's analysis, the kanji written can be understood as "I will die," which makes him imagine it was some girl in the class. They try to reach a conclusion but are interrupted by screams. Niu is on the third-floor balcony wanting to jump. Niu understood that Handa giving her his new eraser was an act of love. Since then, her grades dropped considerably because she focused exclusively on this passion potentially happening. Now she feels absurdly betrayed upon hearing the rumor about Handa's girlfriend, and with that she thinks she's unable to live without being his promised one. The guy truly breaks hearts. In the next room, Handa looks for a table to exchange as his was vandalized. Without noticing Niu's presence, he tries to choose one that pleases him, but none meet his need. Then he's there and starts expressing his thoughts aloud. He ends up apologizing to the table precisely because it suffered unnecessarily, and how much he hadn't noticed it had been important to him. Niu hears those words and gets emotional, thinking it's a sincere apology. With that, she comes down from the balcony crying. Handa doesn't even notice and returns to the room with his table. Niu tries to overcome and live with the fact that her beloved has another. She even tries to clean up the mess she made, but she cries at the thought that he's dating someone who isn't her. So she doesn't finish the job and runs through the corridors crying. She ends up isolating herself in her suffering, and hearing her crying, a woman comes to her rescue. She recognizes this girl as Handa's supposed girlfriend and is shocked. The woman identifies herself, revealing the truth that she is Handa's mother, who is at school for the parent-teacher conference. Oh my god, what a mess. During the meeting, the teacher and Handa's mother agree that he should be more social, right? Maybe even have a hobby with other people. He forces himself to talk to some people like Niu, who is still confused about the eraser, and Aizawa, who praises the boy for his good work as vice president. He gets so emotional from the recognition that he starts crying, but Handa thinks he offended him. Still socially awkward, Handa tries to talk to Akin. Since he can't express words well, he points to the window, and Akin understands that he should throw the chairs to show his commitment. And this misunderstanding leads Handa to rethink how he would talk to people. So much so that he gets distracted and they leave, and then he's left alone in the room. By chance, Kondo enters to get a notebook. Handa, without saying anything, starts following him out of nowhere. Handa brings up a random topic, saying that Japan is very cool. Kondo doesn't understand where this topic came from, but decides to respond with the first thing that comes to mind. He says he's never traveled abroad, so he can't compare. This was enough to make the protagonist very happy. For the first time, he removed that grumpy expression from his face. With this small interaction, he believes it's a success and leaves without explanation, leaving Kondo even more confused. When Handa gets home, he tells his mother about his great success in having a conversation with someone. She praises him but treats it as if it's nothing special, leaving the boy a little sad. Oh, poor thing. The student council president named Seiko ends up having Handa as her enemy for being a man and for hiding the fact that girls melt for him. She is so engaged in women's rights that she even denounced the vice principal for harassment. She then sends two third-year girls whom no one can resist to seduce Handa and show that he's no different from other guys. While he was eating lunch alone, the girls decided to hide to plan how to approach him. But he lectured them, knowing they were hiding and that they should look for something better for themselves, as he had the power to hurt them. They feel touched by these words and leave. Unbeknownst to them, Handa was actually talking to two kittens who wanted to eat his lunch. But these kittens could harm them, as he is allergic to cats. The two return to tell Seiko that they were unable to seduce Handa. This greatly upsets the president. To make matters worse, the two fell in love with him and were inspired to be better people. With that, Seiko asks to capture Handa, and he is forcibly taken by some students. And Aizawa ends up going along. Seiko refuses to be defeated by a man and sentences Handa to wear a female uniform for a year to pay for his crime. But of course, Handa doesn't accept this sentence and flees, because he knows that if he were caught wearing a woman's dress, he would be a laughingstock throughout the school. He runs through the corridors, pursued by Seiko's allies. One of them is a guy who wears a skirt. Handa is surrounded in the corridors while the president advances towards him up the stairs. Seiko's guy tries to capture him, ends up knocking Handa and Seiko down the stairs. Then she remembers her past, in which boys made fun of her name and also bullied her, making her hate men. She wakes from her trance and realizes Handa is there, unconscious and fallen beneath her, which suggests he used his own body to protect her and now he's unconscious. Seiko is moved by this and feels she's falling in love with Handa, which makes her cry. Everyone falls in love with this heartthrob. In the accident, her assistant lost his skirt and was semi-naked, which made her very uncomfortable. Aizawa appears, sees him fallen, and goes to his rescue. When he wakes up, he realizes he has lost his memory. The next day, Handa arrives at school, greeting everyone and being very communicative. He talks to Ryo and Akin, who find it very strange. Aizawa tells them about the accident and that Handa's memory might return in a few days, or he might remain this cheerful and communicative boy forever. Now Handa can perceive that he is popular, and the Handa Force boys didn't like this new version as much. He's no longer the person who inspired them. The girls who were so in love with Handa also didn't like this new version, even thinking he was just another Handa imposter. Except for Niu, who chases him through the school wanting a kiss. The Handa Force boys try to find a way to bring him back. Aizawa suggests pushing him down the stairs to make his memory return. As that would be too complicated, they think of using hammers to hit their idol's head. And Handa is left alone, not understanding why he was popular before and now everyone is turning their backs on him. While he tries to reach a conclusion, he is surprised by acting with a hammer and starts running away, pursued by Aizawa and Ri. During the run, he feels strong headaches, bringing back his old thoughts. Unaware of this, Handa Force continues with the idea of hitting him with a hammer and ends up knocking him down the stairs again. This time he gets up, irritated with that antisocial look, making the trio freeze in fear. Handa finally recovered his memory, and now he believes that this hammer attempt only confirms what he always thought: people hated him. Kawai is worried about Handa having gotten worse. Now, besides thinking everyone hates him after the hammer attempts, Handa thinks people want to kill him. So Kawai tries to solve this, right? He invites Handa to hang out after school. Handa goes disguised to avoid problems, but he doesn't know that Kawai invited a friend named Hasegawa. Handa thinks he needs to maintain Kawai's reputation and invents a bunch of lies. He says he came from the United States, invents a name, and pretends to speak English. Kawai could clear up the misunderstanding, but he enjoys the farce so much that he lets it go. Kawai wants his friend, to meet people and have many other friendships. But everything Handa does seems wrong and makes Kawai's friend think it's a joke. They go to an arcade and the goal is to get the mascots from each game. Kawai is always good at sports and Handa makes some mistakes, which makes Hasegawa think it's just a game. Handa is terrible at bowling. Fortunately, he's good at darts and gets hurt. Hasegawa thinks it's on purpose while Kawai enjoys Handa trying to pretend to be someone else. Handa starts to think Hasegawa is a nice guy but is afraid to talk to him directly. Realizing this, Kawai invents something to step away and leave the two alone. The boy starts talking about cool things they could do together, lending manga and stuff like that. But Handa gets lost in thought and pays no attention to anything. He's just worried about how strange it is to have a friend. Then some third-year guys appear, bullying Hasegawa. Since Kawai isn't with them, the two feel defenseless. Handa thinks he should do something and takes off his disguise, revealing himself. Because of the rumors, the guys get scared of Handa and leave. Hasegawa thinks it's incredible that Handa protected him. But before saying anything, Handa leaves, thinking he protected Kawai from being seen with him. The next day, Handa trips and drops some papers. Hasegawa appears to help. Then Handa decides to tell him who he is. But Hasegawa thinks approaching Handa could be a mistake and apologizes and runs away. At school, there's a guy who's the fastest runner. His name is Higashina Katani, an unbeatable athlete who earned the nickname Speedy. He never stopped training since he lost a race to Handa in elementary school, and with that, Speedy considers Handa his greatest rival, and he continues training to take him down. But in reality, Handa only won because he cheated. Speedy always looks for the best moment to challenge Handa. Handa's gaze is so unyielding that it's difficult to face him. Then by chance, he gets scared by the fake Handa, who notices the mutual obsession with Handa. The fake Handa suggests they race each other in a 100-meter dash. This is to try to solve Speedy's problem. The fake Handa wears a mask that actually makes Speedy imagine the real Handa. Then Speedy runs with such dedication that he breaks his own record. Neither of them has the courage to talk to Handa. They invent a way to make him run. Then they set off smoke in the school hallway, imagining Handa would run from the supposed fire. But then Handa follows protocol and crouches down and covers his nose and mouth. People imitate him and follow the protocol, frustrating the plans of Speedy and the fake Handa. Because of this, both were reprimanded by the principal. The physical education teacher tells Speedy that he has a purpose, which is an athletics team that counts on him, and he can explore that if he stops being obsessed with Handa. Speedy comes to his senses and realizes the foolishness he was doing. But then Handa runs very fast near the running arena, which makes the teacher's speech worthless. Speedy runs after him, trying to beat him. The two line up side by side, and Speedy starts to beat him, but Handa changes path and stops running. Speedy continues running, trying to understand why Handa would have given up, until he realizes that he was being chased by a big dog. And the fool is now the dog's target and ends up being knocked down. Luckily, the dog didn't want to bite him, just wanted some petting. With that, Speedy believes Handa did this on purpose, further worsening his obsession to get revenge on Handa. Meanwhile, at his house, Handa comments to Kawai that he was chased by the dog and was saved by Speedy. Kawai comments that Speedy always chased Handa, but Handa never noticed. Then we see Tsugumi, a girl from Handa's class who is learning things to become a professional psychic. She learns to read palms and test them with the girls, but to test her skills, she wants to read Handa's palm. She asks for help from the Handa Force boys, but they believe he wouldn't accept. However, Handa sees his luck for the day and possibly would have a good or bad surprise. With his paranoia, he starts thinking about some things and gets curious about what it could be. And he thinks it would be a good idea to let her read his palm. This surprises everyone and she begins. In her reading, she realizes he has paranoia problems and sees that he is a completely normal person, nothing she expected from Handa, right? She thought it would be something surprising. Tsugumi feels she needs to give an impressive reading or she'll disappoint everyone. So she says his future would be complicated and would lead him to eternal solitude. The Handa Force guys think this will be incredible in his fight against the world, but Handa thinks his destiny is to wander alone. Tsugumi continues reading and sees that he will have many children, which doesn't make sense since he won't have anyone with him, right? At the end of this reading, Tsugumi thinks she was too arrogant to read his palm, especially someone as special as Handa, which means he taught her to always seek improvement. The test results are then released, and in the classroom 3 people failed. Aizawa is very upset to learn that 2 of them are from Handa Force, namely Ryo and Akin, and Aizawa offers to help them as he ranked first out of 180 students. Ryo was in 178th position and Akin in 179th. Then the boys think about it, and if Aizawa was first, then what position was Handa in? Kondo thinks he was second, but they don't believe Handa would stoop to that role. For Aizawa, there's only one option. Handa failed on purpose to maintain his incredible reputation, so the 3 started studying. The next day the test begins. Minutes before it starts, Ryo arrives in the classroom, and students from another class also come to retake the test, which in this case are the fake Handa and Speedy, each with their own obsession. All of them want to take the test at Handa's desk. And then they start arguing among themselves. Each has their own argument and motivation. They argue and try to invalidate the others, but they are interrupted by the last student who came to take the retake test, Handa himself. No one believes it, man, how did Handa fail? Then everyone starts to create a reason why he failed the first test. They start thinking that he wrote the wrong answers on purpose, or answered correctly and forgot to put his name. There's no basis for that. But all of them come to the conclusion that Handa wouldn't be stupid enough not to write his own name. And then the test officially begins. The crowd is intrigued and starts taking the test, trying to understand what happened. And Handa takes his test quietly in silence. Somehow the 4 feel a certain closeness to Handa, passing by him in the same place in silence as if they were fighting together against this test. They even think that Handa is taking the test to inspire the 4 to get good grades. Then the test ends and the teacher collects everything. Aizawa comes to ask how it went, and everyone is enthusiastic about having spent the whole day next to Handa. The next day they get the test results and passed, and they start thanking Handa for the effort he made to support them. What the crowd didn't know is that the first time Handa just forgot to write his own name, and in the retake he forgot again. He's not dumb, he's just a bit spaced out. After this, the school cut the budget of the library, which is always deserted. All this happens because students rarely show up there. And in the library, Kazumi still manages to keep her job because of a student who still looks for books, Handa himself. This guy helps everyone, man, and guess what, the girl has a crush on him, and she's very afraid of him starting a conversation, so she creates ways for him to notice her. She puts books that he'll probably like, and even a book she wrote herself about the boy and a librarian who fell in love. And she really hopes for the day he finds this book. Every time he goes there, he doesn't take her book, so she went there and disguised her book as a book she knows he would be interested in. Then as soon as Handa leaves, the Handa Force boys enter. They start making a habit of using the library, influenced by their admired idol, right? It's like, what the guy does, we have to do too. Akin is a bit clumsy and starts knocking over some books, annoying Kazumi, and she says they should be like Handa, who treats books well. And with that, Kondo realizes that she's also a Handa fan, and they decide to help her, transforming the library into something attractive so that Handa appears there more often. Aizawa calls all his friends and asks for book donations, which ends up filling the library with many more reading options. This novelty makes many people start frequenting the library, which makes Kazumi very happy. With that, the library's budget increased. The problem is that with all this movement, Handa stopped visiting the place. When they were about to finish work, Handa appears to return a book, and for the first time he talks to Kazumi, mentioning the wrong book that was in another cover. He ended up reading the romance about the librarian and the boy, and he praises her for her dedication and for the change made in the library, leaving the girl's heart racing with so much emotion. Hearing these words, she understands that Handa doesn't want her to focus on the relationship with the student, but rather prioritize everyone. So she said he didn't even need to go to the library anymore because now she has a goal that isn't him. But then Handa understands that she is expelling him from there, right, so that he never returns. All this because he complained about the book with the wrong cover. I think with that, she ruined everything. The school begins preparing students for a school trip, and Kawai suggests Handa take advantage of it to make friends, right? When they're on the train, Ryo passes a packet of candies and Handa wonders if it would be a good idea to eat one. Ryo rushes and takes one for Handa. Everyone is impressed by this. Ryo almost faints knowing his idol accepted the candy. At that moment, some guys from another school enter the car to cause a disturbance. Akin stands up to confront them. Handa accidentally drops the candy he was sucking on the guy's hair. Then a fight begins, which is stopped by Ishimiya, a very popular guy from that other school. He is loved by the girls, respected by the guys, and by chance he already knew Handa. Ishimiya begins a silent dispute with Handa over who is more popular. Then the train arrives in Kyoto and the groups go out to explore the city. The Handa Force boys enter a game of chance and start having fun with it. Meanwhile, the guys from the other school appear along with Ishimiya, and chance becomes the reason for the competition between them. But Handa doesn't participate in this, which makes everyone think he despises it. And in fact, he just had a lucky draw that he didn't care much about. During the night, Handa and Handa Force will share the same room. The boys promised each other to liven things up so Handa would have fun. Before sleeping, they start saying that the building is old and possibly will have ghosts, which makes Handa quite scared, right? But in fact, it's a doll made by the guys from the other school. Handa was so scared that he didn't even move, but the guys thought he was so brave that he didn't even care. The next day, the group went out to have fun. Handa starts walking alone while Handa Force starts a dispute against the students from the rival school. They want to prove that Ishimiya is better than Handa, something that the Handa Force guys won't let happen. Aizawa enters an intelligence dispute against one of them. Ryo tries to start a beauty challenge, But a girl was more interested in finding Akin, who in her memory was a very handsome boy. Meanwhile, Akin fights with swords against another student. Handa walks alone and strolls through the park. Then he sees Ishimiya being followed by some girls and thinks he's an actor, asking to take a photo with him. Ishimiya accepts and puts a piece of gum in Handa's hair. The guy gets revenge for what happened in the train car. But Kondo notices this, and as soon as he can, he removes the gum without Handa knowing. But by chance they meet the students from the other school who aim to hurt Handa, and Kondo finds a way to hide him. Unaware of what's happening, Handa walks very close to them and by chance drops a souvenir. Recognizing them, the students from the other school help him pick it up. They lift the table while he bends down to reach the souvenir. When almost they were going to see who he was, Kondo appears, knocking Handa down to get them out of their sight. The girl almost recognizes Handa, but Kondo is very clever and says he is the fake Handa, and the real one is making the students from the other school follow him. Handa thinks Kondo hurt him for free, unaware that in fact he was protecting him. The next day, which will be the last day, Ishimiya finds Handa alone. He opens his heart, talking about the difficulties of being a very popular student, and he feels that he could only open up to someone like him. But Handa has no idea what Ishimiya is talking about. Finally, Ishimiya asks them to make peace and be friends. Nearby, Ishimiya's follower meets Handa Force, and what seemed to become an epic battle ends up being the two groups making peace and realizing what they have in common. Then the two groups find their idols talk, and they arrive exactly when Ishimiya asks for Handa's friendship. But Handa denies the friendship and suggests a conflict among everyone. But Handa elaborates. He says that Ishimiya is very popular and already has friends, and they are people who do everything for him. Ishimiya says that Handa is wise. He saw his group as his subordinates, but now with Handa's philosophy he can see them as his friends. On the other hand, Handa still feels uncomfortable with Handa Force, especially because there are some disturbed guys there. Aizawa is a complainer, Akin is a threat, Ryo is an opportunist, and Kondo is a bore. But it turns out that one of Ishimiya's subordinates doesn't accept this resolution and tries to attack Handa. But he was stopped by Kondo, who finally revealed his obsession with Handa, while Aizawa accidentally pushes him off the bridge into the water. After that, the teacher tries to bring back frog dissections for biology class. But it had been cancelled because students' parents complained. To get the students' support, he asked Handa for help, who in reality would oppose this idea, but Aizawa is nearby and gets excited along with the teacher, and the two immediately assume Handa is in favor. Aizawa says he has confidential information on all the students who oppose, and Handa believes he's among them and feels obliged to participate. Aizawa makes an announcement in the classroom, trying to convince everyone. But no one is interested, right? Then Handa stands in a corner, waiting for him to sort things out. Kondo notices he's uncomfortable and imagines Handa will object and asks the class president to say something. With everyone looking at him, Handa enters his paranoid mode, and he thinks people are judging him as if he were a wimp. That's why he says he's in favor of frog dissections, even if it goes against his own will. Some girls are uncomfortable with bringing back frog dissections, but since Handa was in favor to please them, they agree. With Niu's name, the class agrees due to Handa's power. Then comes the day to dissect the frogs, and each one receives theirs. This is thanks to an overpopulation that considered the frogs a plague. The teacher saves the largest for Handa as a thank you. But of course he doesn't understand this as a good gift, right? And believes this was a way to humiliate him. With much disgust holding the creature, Handa ends up letting it escape, causing a whole commotion in the classroom. A lot of things are broken, people are injured, and a large number of frogs flee through the door. And everyone finds Handa fallen, stammering, and starts paying attention. Handa says he wants to leave and that humans are terrible. Then they believe Handa was possessed by the frog and served as a receptacle to give a message before frog dissection. It turns out Handa is taken to the infirmary and the students decide to release the frogs in a stream. And they end up discovering, accidentally, a small ecosystem of plants and flowers, and that makes them interested in it. The teacher starts observing and understands that Handa wanted him to realize that there wasn't just one way to teach biology. And so he thanks Handa in his thoughts. Every day, one of the Handa Force boys watches him until he gets home, something they've been doing for a long time without him knowing. One beautiful day, Aizawa is doing his work and observes that Handa is fleeing from someone pursuing him. Handa Force unites to discover who this pursuer is. Aizawa and Kondo spy on him from a corner, and they end up seeing Niu hidden in a bush. For Kondo, she's a crazy girl, a possible threat, but Aizawa says no, she's the one who keeps the crazy girls away from Handa. In another corner, Ryo and Akin are waiting for Handa to pass, but they only see the librarian who wanted to visit him. Before the two could conclude whether Kazumi was the pursuer or not, Niu appears, statting her function, stopping her. She grabs her and takes her to a dark alley. At this moment, Akin senses a presence and goes looking to find out who it is. Back to Handa, he realizes that Aizawa and Kondo are behind him and decides to run. The two don't want to lose sight of him, but Handa is too fast to run, so they have an ally, Speedy. Ryo and Akin pursue the shadow to a vacant lot and realize they've fallen into the pursuer's trap. They were cornered by a big dog, the same one that likes to receive cuddle. Group gathers, Speedy lost sight of Handa. Ryo and Akin return defeated, and Niu brings the librarian, making sure she's not the pursuer. Somewhere else, Handa is alone and relieved after all the work he had to do to shake off all those crazy people he avoided all day. He just needed to jump a wall and get to the cafeteria to meet Kawai. As soon as he gets on top, he comes across everyone from Handa Force. Handa stands on the wall, and the sun behind him gives him a glorious image. And they all start to worship his image. He starts to think that the guys were there to stop him, which makes him angry. He gets furious to the point of achieving his opposite, declaring what he feels. He says he wants to be left alone and be able to walk freely without being pursued. And Kondo understands that they harassed the poor guy all day. But Aizawa believes Handa was talking directly to the pursuer, and everyone supports him as if they were Handa's precious allies against this pursuer. And so they start devising new strategies to protect Handa from the pursuers. Handa goes around and manages to reach the cafeteria and meet Kawai, but he's quite dirty because he was playing with a big dog earlier. Kondo has always been a normal guy. One day he arrived at school and noticed a love letter on his desk, an invitation to meet him behind the gym after class. He was so nervous he didn't know how to act, so he decided to ask Ryo for help. But he's too extravagant a playboy and he gives up on the idea. Another option is to ask Akin for help, who in this case he believes it's not a love letter. When he was very skinny, Akin received a letter, and in fact it was a trap with several guys bullying him. Aizawa takes the letter and says the handwriting is Maki, a very normal girl who doesn't stand out in anything, exactly like Kondo. The Handa Force boys decide to help Kondo. Ryo gives him a makeover. Aizawa suggests gift ideas and Akin writes a reply letter to the girl. All this movement makes Kondo notice that people are whispering when he passes, and Kondo for the first time starts to feel special. With his self-esteem high, he goes to the meeting place. Arriving there, the girl has a message for Kondo telling him to stop acting like he's special just because he's from Handa Force. Kondo tries to take it well, he had never felt special, but that really affected him. Then he was alone walking and bumps into Handa. Kondo tries to be nice and Handa tries to act crazy to scare him. Since on the trip Kondo attacked him many times, right? The two exchange a few words and Kondo gives him the little letter he would give to the girl. The two are happy, it seems they're making progress in this idea of making friends, and they go their separate ways. Kondo realizes that he has become like his friends from Handa Force, being mentally grateful to Handa. Handa, on the other hand, is very happy with the gift he received. He reads the message that was blurred by Kondo's sweaty hands, and then, my friend, it looks like an insult. This confirms to Handa that everyone hates him and people are cruel. The Manga Artists Club is going to be cut from the student council for spending part of the budget on an individual hobby. A way they find to continue would be to sell some manga. But the stories they are writing are not very popular. For that, they need something that will please the students and not lose the club. With no idea what to do, they decide to write a manga about Handa, who is the most popular boy in school. Club then decides to research Handa to write a worthy character. One of them decides to place an Ayaka doll to try to trick Handa and pretend to be a magical creature talking to him. At the time, Handa realizes it's some kind of prank, but he plays along so as not to be rude. The boy thinks Handa fell for it and can take advantage of Handa's perverted side, and he tries some more intimate movements, but Handa acts with respect towards the doll as if she were a real woman. Now that Handa showed him the way, the boy rethinks the way he had been treating Seiko. He was treating her like any woman and starts treating her like a man in love. Now that this has changed, the head of the mangaka doesn't want to allow obscene things in his manga. This generates a discussion in the club. The conflict becomes so violent that they start physically assaulting each other. Then the chief shows them what he drew about Handa, so they can learn from him how to be a real man. They get inspired and are excited to show everything about how Handa is a man of integrity. But for that, they will need his authorization. And then the trio goes after him. But then it turns out there's a misunderstanding because Handa himself comes into the room to get the recycled paper. Unable to meet Handa, they bump into Aizawa, who says that Handa took their recycled paper, so they go back to the club. Upon arriving there, they realize that the manga they needed authorization for was mixed up and Handa took everything. They run to the school, but it's too late. Handa handed all the trash over for recycling. Now the trio is unable to reach the garbage truck. They start screaming, desperate that the manga was there. Handa immediately understands and runs after the truck to help, especially because he felt guilty, right? It was he who threw the guy's manga there. And like a hero, Handa returns with the truck wanting to get rid of this guilt. And the trio is very grateful to him, managing to rescue the lost manga. Autumn is approaching, and with it preparations for the cultural festival. Seiko wants to change the event's name to Handa Festival. She tries to sneak it through, but no one pays attention. So she changes it to Seishu Festival, which is another name for Handa. Aizawa decides to engage his class to do something cool and win an award for their participation. Ryo suggests they create a maid cafe where all boys and girls will dress as maids and serve coffee. Akin would agree if it were a fighting cafe, and the girls suggest they perform Romeo and Juliet. And the Handa Force boys try to start a conversation with Handa. And as he was distracted writing, they start thinking he was suggesting a calligraphy class. I'm telling you, the man does nothing they say he's doing. The entire class needs to decide. They leave it up to Handa since he's the class president. He is paralyzed in front of the options. And it turns out he doesn't want to displease anyone. And to help, Kondo suggests they do a musical. But the attempt fails. They now have 4 options. Handa can't decide anything and is overcome by panic. So he pretends to go to the bathroom and runs away. In his escape, he isolates himself to think about what to decide. And he finds Seiko. She learns he needs to decide and advises him to choose what's good for him, not to think about what others think. Immediately after, she asks him to make the festival posters. Handa accepts this advice and returns to the room to make his decision. but then they held a vote and eliminated calligraphy. What happened was they combined the three ideas and will produce a Romeo and Juliet musical in a maid cafe version. A mess. And committed Handa starts working alone on the posters. The next day, Handa's going to school and glances around and sees some delinquents who would certainly mug them, and he hides. Akin appears and sees him hiding. He thinks Handa would easily deal with the guys. But to show his worth, as soon as Handa asks, he advances and fights against the three, defeating them easily. At that moment, Handa realizes that Akin obeyed his order as if waiting to be commanded. The day passes, preparations are underway, and they ask Handa to just sit down. He gets upset about being left out, but according to what happens, he slowly realizes that it's their way of treating him well. So much so that he ends up dozing off, and so as not to disturb him, they wake him up. Then he needed to go home in the dark. And with his costume, those delinquents advance against Handa. But Akin protects him and fights against the guys. The next day, several preparations are happening simultaneously. The manga based on Handa made by the Manga Club is finished with 5,000 copies, as they expect to sell 5 units per student. Aizawa, as the director of the musical, asks the librarian Kazumi to write the script. And he cast Ryo as Romeo and Akin as Juliet, with both wanting to play the opposite roles. And the fake Handa will do makeup to disguise people as Handa, since that's the only makeup he knows how to do. With everyone working, Handa feels lonely. But he keeps observing and he decides to step up and do his part. He manages to make the sign with his calligraphy and writes Seishu Festival. But during the night, the Handa Force boys added Handa to the sign, now making it his full name, Handa Seishu Festival. Everyone is having fun with the variety of things to do at the festival. The students worked hard to deliver good work. Kawai and Hasegawa are at a calligraphy stand where people describe something and take photos. Kawai is curious to know what the homeroom is doing and joins the next group to watch the presentation. The cafe is themed, and Kawai and Hasegawa make some orders, and on stage Ryo, who is Romeo, and Akin as Juliet are presented, with Kazumi narrating. They mix other Shakespearean plays and it turns into a tremendous mess. Thing is well elaborated. There are waiter dances, presentations, and the play continues, and Kawai is still worried about what role Handa is playing. As the play is ending, at the moment Romeo and Juliet would kill themselves, the conflict of Shakespeare's main protagonists mixes, and a confusion begins between the protagonists. Only one person would be able to resolve all this, the character who enters to show her divinity, which in this case is Queen Elizabeth, played by Handa without any line. Handa notices Kawai in the audience and all his paranoia returns. He has many crazy thoughts and believes he's being humiliated with some prank. But given the recent circumstances Handa has been through, he gathers courage and takes action. Then he improvises a speech declaring war on the Spanish Armada. The audience goes wild and starts cheering for Handa as if he were the highlight of the play. With that, he runs from the play, and everyone follows him too, without knowing why. Kawai this time is very sad and feels sorry for all the psychological torture he made Handa go through for a long time. Meanwhile, the delinquents who were chasing Handa arrive at the festival and buy manga. The Handa Force boys learn of the invasion and devise a plan. With the help of the fake Handa, they assemble an army of people disguised as Handa to confuse the enemy. The fight doesn't even begin, and Speedy accidentally reveals where to find the real Handa. The delinquents leave. On the way, Tsugumi is at a fortune-telling booth, and she tells the delinquents that they won't have a pleasant future and says their death is near. The guys flee from her, not wanting to hear what she has to say. And Niu and Kazumi see them and discover that they are after Handa, and they start devising a strategy to stop them. Another group that comes to visit the festival are Ishimiya's friends. They buy many copies of Handa's manga and walk around the place where everything is Handa-themed. Handa's left alone, questioning why he is treated this way. He also says he is to blame when he gives people a little space to talk to him. It goes wrong. In these internal thoughts, he decides to improvise a speech to feel more important, without thinking much about whether he will like it or not. At that moment, the delinquents enter the room and he's excluded from backstage and thinks the play has started. With that, the guy starts to dress as Queen Elizabeth. The delinquents wait because they want to meet Handa. Then Ishimiya and his friends go to Handa's room to watch the play, and they wait there for the next group. Without even realizing it, Handa is there rehearsing his speech, waiting to enter as Queen Elizabeth. Ishimiya's group and the delinquents don't get along, and with that the atmosphere heats up to the point that the two groups start fighting inside the room. Handa Force arrives next, entering the combat. Handa believes the noise was his cue. He delivers his line. He tells them to stop fighting, and realizing he entered at the wrong time, he isolates himself in his chair again, feeling useless. But outside, Ishimiya feels ashamed to know that all the time Handa had been watching, and also witnessed them killing each other like animals. The delinquents reveal that they came there to give Handa a chance to be their leader. Ever since Handa fought against them and they met Akin, they arrested the boss and now seek a strong leader to restore the gang. To make matters worse, Niu and Kazumi faint, and the delinquents confirmed Tsugumi's prediction. With that, the festival ends, and as protocol, everyone stands around the bonfire. Handa is alone, but he notices the fans are observing. At this moment, Seiko announces the presentation that had the biggest repercussion. Class president will use a replica of a samurai helmet as a prize. In second place are the mangaka who sold all 5,000 units of Handa's manga. They win a cardboard crown. And as king of the festival, the chosen one is of course Handa. Everyone already knew it would be like this, except Handa, who is honestly surprised, right? The man is incredibly spaced out. He goes up on stage thinking he's going to be humiliated with some prank. Seiko gives a whole passionate speech about how incredible Handa is, while he stands there fearing being scolded in some way. Suddenly, Kawhi goes up on stage and tries to stop the crowning. But Seiko speeds things up, and Kawhi calmly reveals in front of everyone that he and Handa are friends. What was supposed to be a revelation to make things easier worsens the situation when the crowd realizes that Kawhi is trying to steal Handa's prize. Others think they can claim the prize for themselves, and a civil war erupts and everyone starts fighting. Punching and fighting everywhere. Not even Handa Force, which is known for supporting Handa, knew about this friendship, and the controversy continued. With all this confusion, Handa's social barriers increase until Kawhi is attacked by a plastic bottle. At that moment, Kawhi tries to help his friend. He tells him that he should see things as they truly are and not through his paranoid barrier. For the first time, Handa looks at people and sees how much they like him. And all this time he was not hated but rather very popular. When he realizes this, he understands what was really happening. And to end the controversy, he decides that this prize is not just for one person but for everyone who fought to make the festival a success. As always, people understand that Handa spoke very wise words, and everyone is happy. To finish, Seiko releases a giant doll in Handa's likeness. Kawhi says he is adored, and Handa Force appears to take him to have fun. Only now does he realize that the boys liked and protected him. The giant doll is burned in the bonfire and everyone thinks it's beautiful. This serves as a wonderful ritual. Handa finds this bizarre, especially since they enjoy seeing him burn right, but this time Handa doesn't allow his social barriers, and he understands that it's just a metaphor. The next day he goes to class and Kawhi is waiting for him. Well, Kawhi hidden in the bush. He doesn't quite know what to do. Kawhi suggests they just get rid of the barriers and be themselves. Then Aizawa approaches and starts walking with him. Then comes Ryo Akin and soon all the people who like him. And Handa, very happy, greets everyone.